What?
I know it's weird to spend our time doing this, but this channel, PragerU, is very interesting from an argument standpoint, and I want to go through really quick this very new video that the channel put out with comedian and right-wing talk show host Adam Carolla talking about privilege, and I just find it really funny. He basically throws everything he has at the idea of privilege in 5 minutes, but the arguments don't line up in any way. So let's just start with the first one. He starts by basically saying, well, if there's privilege to being a white person, which he grants, it's not that it's better to be a white person, it's just that it's like more neutral. So there's a difference there. So let's hear him explain. This is his first argument against the idea of privilege. I'm sorry, okay?
If I told you a story about a kid who grew up poor, product of divorce, did a lot of dumpster diving, sister ran away at age 14, welfare and food stamps, if I told you that kid was black, you'd go, well, yeah, that's because of systemic racism. But if I told you that kid was me, you'd go, what? What are we doing? What happened to your privilege? The real white privilege isn't privilege. It's knowing that nobody cares about you, good or bad. No one's going to do anything for you because you're white, and no one's going to do anything against you because you're white. I'll give you an example. When I get pulled over by a cop, I assume it's either because I was speeding or the cop's an overficious jerk. But either way, my skin color doesn't play in. If I was black, I'm assuming that it was driving while black or that he was profiling me. Let me give you another example.
And I know that was a long clip, but that's the kind of thrust of the argument. That's how it starts, which I was so confused by. Because, okay, the beginning, I hate the animation. I hate how PragerU does their animation. It feels like offensively bad. But anyways, okay, so his point is, if he told you that someone was African American, you would say, well, they were suffering because of systemic racism. But if he told you that they were white, which he is and was, then you would be like, what? No, man. First of all, I wouldn't just say, oh, that was because of systemic racism. Systemic racism is just a phrase to describe a complex set of phenomena. That wouldn't be the first thing out of my mouth, first of all. But you being white does not send me, like, back to the drawing board on trying to understand my reality, bro. I would be like, oh, wow, there were a lot of complex factors, some of them economic. Like, you know, capitalism does oppress a lot of people by expropriating, like, surplus labor value and basically creating profit for the property owners in that way. I wouldn't just be confused, Adam. But, okay, anyways, he goes on to say a very true understanding of white privilege. It's the privilege of being essentially racially invisible. The fact that being white is the norm and you never have to think about the fact that you're white, that is white privilege. He literally explains it very well. And when he says that a black person getting pulled over would assume it's driving while black, he doesn't even seem to be making fun of that idea, honestly. Maybe I'm missing the tone, but he seems to understand this point of, like, white privilege being the privilege of fitting in and being the norm and basically never having to think about the fact that you're white. So I guess that's him thinking he dealt with that point, which is the funny thing about PragerU. They'll address anything resembling a counter-argument for even a second, but they don't feel the need to, like, create a symmetrical argument that actually works to, like, deny one of the premises of the argument they're disagreeing with. They just think they can mention it and then sort of move on in a creative way. So that's why I find these videos so funny, just from, like, a rhetoric standpoint and basically just looking at the way they construct their arguments. A lot of birds outside today. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyways, so let's check out the next part of what Adam has to say, and we'll be out of here pretty soon. Don't worry.
Let me give you another example of the white privilege I'm talking about. The privilege of not obsessing over privilege. I had a neighbor call the police on me during the day, during the middle of the week, when I was doing a construction project because our phone lines got crossed. So I picked up the phone to call Anawalt Lumber. My neighbor picked up the phone. I said, oh, sorry, I think our lines got crossed somehow. Next thing I know, a police cruiser rolled up to my home. Now, if I was black, I would have no choice but to think that was racially motivated. I mean, why else would your neighbor call the cops on you because your phone lines got crossed, unless in fact you're black? And as a matter of fact, I'm not even black, and I think it was a racist incident. Do you get it?
It's important when you're watching a comedian make a political argument that you literally extract the jokes from the political argument if you're trying to understand the political argument. The jokes are completely different and of a different species, so you just have to pull them out of there if you want to understand what the actual argument is. So forget that he says that he considers it racism against himself. The point he's making is everybody experiences bad things, but because he's white, he doesn't think it relates to his race. And he is saying that white privilege is the ability to, in his words, not obsess over race.
Whites do have privilege, but not the privilege the race hustlers are selling. I don't think people really drill down enough on this. I've had horrible things happen to me my entire life. I've had school teachers and counselors that were horrible. I've had construction foremen who treated me like crap. I've had program directors who treated me like crap. And the good news is I'm white. So I just know they're a-holes, not racist. Why do we want anyone worrying about someone else's privilege? Who cares? This is America. You make your own breaks. Anyway, isn't the goal not to judge a person by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character? I think I heard that somewhere. What's the guy's name? Marty? Anyway, privilege means you have it better than most, not that you have it better than some. How about tall people? Tall people have an advantage over short people. Thin people have an advantage over fat people. Attractive people, you're welcome, have an advantage over the homely. There are always going to be people lower than you on the totem pole, no matter what color your skin is. Wait a minute, are we allowed to say totem pole? I feel like that's racist.
What? Like, what? That is so... It goes on to, like, this whole other point, and we'll cover it briefly. But, like, that was so much, and that really doesn't make sense. And everybody knows it. Like, how could you not know it? You watch that, and he basically says, white people do have privilege, but it's not the privilege people usually call white privilege. Adam tells us it's actually the privilege to just realize that people are a-holes, not racist. But he never makes it clear what the reality is. Like, his point is that your subjective experience as a white person is that you don't experience things as racism. You experience them as people being jerks. But he never addresses the point of, like, what is the reality? Like, are you being treated differently because of your race? Like, yeah, you're addressing, like, what the subjective experience is, but not, like, what the larger social factors are. Anyways, it doesn't totally matter. Like, he's just not even addressing anyone's experience at all. He's just saying, oh, I've encountered bad stuff too. And he's correctly saying white privilege is the ability to not have to think about your race. But he's obfuscating, really, for lack of a better word. He's making it all muddied, like, about what the reality is by saying that he gets the privilege of his sort of perception of reality, being that people are just jerks and not racist. And by talking about his perception, he makes it so he's not actually referring to or having to address the question of what is the reality and how are people treated differently because of discrimination and oppression. So, and the comedy, I mean, it's like depressing. I don't even want to talk about it. So here's just like his final point, and notice just how like cliche of a point it is. It's one you've probably heard before, and it's just very different from what he had been saying before. So it's just like this whole new thing. He's like, what about this point?
Every minority person living in the United States in 2021 is doing better than people living in the Congo, Bangladesh, or many other places around the world. And if you don't believe me, then why they're all trying to get here? Do the math. We're a systemically racist country that people are trying to kill themselves. They're literally risking their lives trying to get into the systemically racist country. Let's just say this country was a facility, and the facility was systemically racist. And every year, people died trying to hop the fence and climb the wall to get into the facility. People of color? Would that make sense?
Yeah, well, what if, they're fleeing from countries that have been, to some often a significant extent, really poorly influenced by the US and by other similarly capitalist nations that have completely exploited countries all around the globe so much. So I don't know how much to argue that point, but the fact that people are coming to the US is a testament to how much we've exploited the wealth of foreign nations. It's a sign of some good democratic values, sure, but come on, you think people are making some calculated decision out of a catalog of the most democratic countries? They're trying to go where there's wealth and a good livelihood, and we have that at the expense of people who, the millions and billions of people and so many people who still live and suffer in other countries where they've been directly exploited by US or Western countries or companies. What's the difference anymore? Anyways, obviously PragerU comes to a political point. That's the last point. We'll get to it right after this. But, to this whole thing, it's just a very cliche point of the whole, people immigrating to the U.S. means that we must not be systemically racist. Absolutely ridiculous. But I just find it rhetorically very interesting to address an argument. The U.S. is systemically racist. White people have privilege, which are, kind of different things, to be honest. But they're obviously related. To address those points in this way of saying, well, what about all the people coming here? Doesn't seem like they'd be doing that. Dude, you didn't address any of the points. You didn't address the disproportionately high arrest, incarceration rates, sentencing rates. You didn't address anything about how systemic racism actually works and affects people in our world. You just said this other point about people from other countries wanting to move here. The fact that they think that flies is just so funny and interesting. That's why I make these videos. Plus, I hope people watch them and then check out my other videos and stuff like that. Anyways, let's just check out the last point, and then we'll get out of here, and we'll have a nice day.
The great news is that if you're willing to bust your hump, there's no better country to do it in. So maybe we should stop obsessing on skin color or gender or sexual proclivities and get on with the hump busting. You know what would fix all this nonsense? A little gratitude. You got up this morning, you put your shoes on, your fridge was full, you hugged your kids, you said goodbye to your wife, you said hello to your girlfriend. Gratitude for living in the best country in the world at the best time to live in the best country in the world. Whatever your skin color is, there's no better country than the United States to call your home. I'm Adam Carolla for Prager University.
This video was made possible.
It's very interesting from a rhetorical argument standpoint to see someone focusing on a euphemism like bust your hump. It's very powerful from an emotional standpoint, but what is he saying? Working hard is best in America. And this time, right now, in this country, America, is the best place you would want to be working really hard because you're rewarded for your labor because of all our freedoms. Which, by the way, PragerU has a lot of problems with how America is right now. You wouldn't realize that in every video because they sort of alternate, but they do have a huge problem. They want it to be more economically sort of liberal, where they'd be able to do whatever they want with almost no government regulation. But in general, they like America despite all that because they say, it is the best place to carry on with your wealth and you have the rights of private property or whatever. They really like it. They talk it up. It's this very conformational ideology. And I don't mean ideology in a negative sense. I would readily admit I have ideologies. But I think it's important to understand when you watch PragerU, holy crap, that's an ideology. Like, this is a very well-formulated, over-the-top, very descriptive sense of understanding the entire world. And to the point where he's telling you, you should be grateful and proud to be an American. The complicated thing, honestly, is gratitude is extremely important. From a mental health and just living standpoint, I think for anyone, I can't imagine a person where part of what would be helpful to them as far as a perspective and ideology would be a huge dose of gratitude. I think all of us. Because why not? What do you have to lose by being a little grateful for the fact that you exist and so on? I'm not one of those people that's like, be grateful all the time, because I think it's, stupid and annoying to be saying that all the time. And PragerU uses gratitude as this sort of part of their plan to try to say, suck it up and deal with how things are, basically, which I think is bullshit. You can be extremely grateful. And in fact, to me, what would be the most mentally healthy perspective would be to have a dialectic, like in my hour-long video about dialectics, I talk about you have to have the one and the contradiction and the synthesis. So you basically have the gratitude and the desire to change, the overwhelming passion to change how things are, to improve how things are, and together you sort of synthesize those and ideally have some sort of understanding that guides you through the world where you embrace how things are while always pushing for improvement. But of course, PragerU is extremely regressive, reactionary, and so on. So, what we get is this, like, be proud that you're an American type of thing. And it's like, okay, bro, okay, can I go, please? And of course, we can go. Like, this is the end of the video. It's been done. Thanks for watching. Check out the other videos. I got a Patreon. You can donate money if you somehow want to do that. Check out the other videos before you do that. Don't be too rash. And thanks for watching. I enjoy making these. I think talking about PragerU is a total waste of time in like any sort of meaningful sense, but I enjoy it, so it's fun. So like that's what I like about it. It's just a fun time. And I just happened to check PragerU today. I was like, oh, I should do a PragerU video on board. And they had this new Adam Carolla video. So it was fucking bullshit and stupid. But I actually played the whole video for you. So you don't even have to check it out to make sure I portrayed it in an accurate way. Because I think I played every single second of it. Anyways, have a good day. And okay. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you for watching this